Dilijan is a crossroad in a great sense of this phrase.
What do you see? I mean, how is it changing? Where is the college in all the changes? And where are the architects?
A lot of the development has been with that in mind, to try and integrate these large investments and make it more relevant to the locals.
And actually, the dreamers are the people who change things.
The cinema was built exactly on the place of the destroyed church.
What do we see for Dilijan in present, and what do we see for future?
We need to create some type of activity for local people where they will be self-sufficient.
And against the background of having, the most international, most diverse and most interesting institution in Armenia, as the college is, what do we see for Dilijan in present, and what do we see for future? And please, Maxim, I would like to start with you, because, it's sort of, we are guests and the host will be saying the last word. Yes, please.
Thank you for the possibility to participate in such a discussion. And I'm glad to be here with you, gentlemen, ladies. And I think, first of all, even going deeper than last 20 years, what the city of the town of Dilijan is. First of all, it wasn't a town in a sense that it was rather a cluster of few villages. And that's why it still should develop itself as a town. This is a problem. And from urbanistic point of view, and even within our discussion, we are very restricted, because architects, I mean both urbanists and architects, can only arrange the stage for social activity. We cannot create the social activity. But so we'll talk mostly about the frames, so let's say architectural arrangement. So the most important peculiar feature of Dilijan is that Dilijan is a crossroad in a great sense of this phrase, because it's in the middle of all important directions in the region. But in the same way, it's a crossroad without the developed and pronounced city center, town center. It's just a number of directions. And so the most important thing is to create the way to integrate the different parts of this town, and to create some idea of the center in the physical sense of this term, but also in a feeling of local people. So they should realize that the central part of Dilijan is particular this place, for example, which one they will decide. So let's finish with this.
If I may add a couple of words. Indeed, even until nowadays, different districts in Dilijan are called Papanino and Golovino, which are the names of Molokan villages that used to be here. So the idea of being a cluster of villages developed into town in the Soviet time is a very valid one. And I would also like to stress, the development actually started with the sickness of the communist leader of Armenia, Khanjan, who was, who had tuberculosis. And he didn't want to go to Italy to treat himself, to cure this illness. So Dilijan was found as a very good place for those who are ill with tuberculosis. And actually they were coming here, and there were several hospitals situated here. And then slowly, stage by stage, things changed. Now, Tim, the floor is yours, please. What do you see? I mean, how is it changing? Where is the college in all the changes? And where are the architects?
Again, thank you very much for the opportunity to talk about Dilijan. It's been sort of a 15-year experience, at least for me. I think what happened when we first came here, obviously Dilijan was a fairly rundown, sad place, if you like. And at early days, the school actually recognized, or the founders of the school recognized, that what we were going to produce was yet another large development that was going to impact upon the local community. So one of the things that we were very conscious of was that we wanted to integrate the community, and that is still a very, very important part of the development of Dilijan. And we didn't want just to have an isolated big development, which to all intents and purposes the central bank was. But we wanted then to unify not only those larger elements, but then to scale it down to a more manageable scale with integration of the locals. And so a lot of the development has been with that in mind, to try and integrate these large investments and make it more relevant to the locals. And I'm a firm believer that Dilijan's actually at a crossroads, and not only crossroads in that we need to move the center towards the crossroads, but also it's at a crossroads that we can develop things well, or we can develop things badly, because there's still the opportunity to do both. And I think we need to be very careful on what we develop going forward, because I think it needs to be integrated, which is part of the goal of certainly of what we set out to do.
When we had a discussion, a very brief discussion before the beginning, you said that too rapid movement forward may also be damaging, right? Can you please deliberate a bit this idea?
Well, I think we shouldn't do things just because we can. Yes. So obviously, from a financial point of view, somebody could say, okay, I can build a hotel here, and I can make it very successful. But actually, it's not just about building the hotel. It's about how it sits within the community, how it sits within the architecture, the development, and everything. So it all needs to be integrated properly, as far as I'm concerned. So I think better is slower, because I think you get a better quality and a more lasting quality. Because how often do we see things pop up quickly? They spend an awful lot of money on them, but then they're not successful because they haven't really thought about how it's integrated. They're all isolated. And I think we need to try and integrate all of this.
So to a point, we can say that slower is quicker in developing a city or a town, right?
Well, I think it's more long-lasting as well. Yes?
Now, Maxim, you said about the center of the town. On my memory, and I don't believe, I'm as old as dinosaurs, Dilijan had three different city centers. One was, when I was a boy, it was near the place where we have now the picture gallery.
Yeah.
The other one then was created with the building of the communist party headquarters and the mayoral building.
And the cinema.
And the cinema, exactly. And the cinema was sort of a very important cluster where it all was. And now the center is moving again to the park. What does it say about Dilijan? How do we see it, and actually what does it mean for the future of the town?
About the future, always difficult to talk or too easy. And I think talking about the center, I didn't mean the unique place. I mean that even if the Dilijan has a particular character, speaking about the dangers of the too fast development, the one important danger is to cancel the local character. Because first of all, of course, we have to understand which values are natural for this particular town, which language, which type of social relations, and which type of architecture is value. Because we can see different things, like Molokan villages remains with some subtle Russian character of the wooden parts. We can see some Soviet buildings, some late Soviet, quite ugly, nine level.
9-story, huge
city scrapers. Well, and that's why it's better to keep the most possible things. Like, for example, the natural center of this old part of Dilijan, where the cinema and other things was already established as a center, because the cinema was built exactly on the place of the destroyed church. The church was not too old; it was the end of 19th century, but this was the church, and that's why this is a natural place of the center of this particular cluster of Dilijan. So maybe it should be like a polycentric. Maybe this is the natural way of development here. What is important, seems important for me, is another danger of this fast development is if the head will start with more speed when the legs, so the body will be broken, So the disintegration between some cluster of hotels or a college or whatever else and the locals will create a stress, and the worst is to create something as both of you built a hotels, and we know with Team that when the hotel development is, they say it's a front of house and a back of house, and I hate this division in a living town. So we have to think about local people and their values. They should not be just as servants of some hotels, ski resorts, or whatever else. And this is a question.
Exactly. Some 10 years ago, I participated in a very similar discussion. Veronica is here. She was sort of leading that discussion. The thing is, if we create hotels, if we see Dilijan as a resort town, we create hotels, sanatoria, the college, the central bank, whatever. But for the locals, for the people of Dilijan, there is still this glass ceiling above their heads, because what the locals can do, they can grow into what? Being, working in cafes, working in sanatoria, serving people, where we definitely need something for the city which will break that glass ceiling. And of course, the college does this thing because the college has one or two, I think two, students each year from Dilijan. And okay, in 10 years, it makes 20 students. In another 10 years, it will be 40. But will these 40 create a new dimension, a new quality in the town? That might be the question. Can you, this is one of the deficiencies of having architects on the panel, only architects on the panel, because it also needs some, people from social sciences to talk about that. But I do trust you. I know you can speak about that. Please, Tim.
Okay. Well, again, I think when we're talking about the locals, and it's about education too. And for me, the very first step is for them to understand or appreciate what they already have. So for me, when I first came, Dilijan was a wonderful place. Yes, full stop. Yeah. I felt that it could be improved and it could be helped. So I think that's the first step. So we need to engage with the local population with everything that we do, but also not just develop, going back to the development, is not just develop just for the sake of developing, but to actually understand why we should develop something. And when we were just talking about the center, I suppose center probably is not the right word. I think what I'm talking about is we need to merge all of the outskirts together so that they all become integrated. They're not isolated elements, because when the villages of Dilijan have all expanded and joined, yes? And so that's why there is no real center. But we need to, if you like, create even if it's a sort of false center, it's emerging, yes?
No, and Maxim was right. It can be a place of many smaller centers, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but you could still have centers, but all I'm talking about, rather than have them isolated, that I think they need to be integrated. And anything that, when we have a big development that obviously, like here, like the bank and other areas, that other facilities that have grown up, they need to be part of the bigger picture, for me.
In the Soviet times, in mid-60s, a big factory was built in Dilijan. It was the Impulse factory, which dealt with electronics, and they were sort of assembling transistors or resistors, or maybe both. And it was an enterprise which created a new dimension for the town, for Dilijan. A lot of people were working there. Their salaries were relatively high. There were separate quarters, dwelling quarters created for them. And sort of the future of the town was seen around that Impulse factory. Now, when this is not relevant anymore, we don't see any center, any cell which will expand around it. So probably it should be multi-celled place. Which may be these cells? At the moment, we have the picture gallery as one very important place. And again, the other two places about which we were talking a lot. Could it be, say, a hotel? Could it be, a recreational place? Or do we need a factory?
Well, I'll try to formulate why it would not be a hotel or something this sort, because we need to create some type of activity for local people where they will be self-sufficient, where they will not serve to some tourists or visitors. This is very important. That should be something which would not connect it with a flow of visitors. So it should be some industry and somehow, because not some heavy industry, of course, but maybe some food factories, small size food factories, or even electronics again. Why not? Because this will not press to the natural conditions, natural surrounding, because the valuest thing of Dilijan is the natural resort, and we have to respect this first of all. But so we have to counterweight the development of touristic industry or hotel industry or even educational industry with something where the local people will be self-sufficient. It's a bit funny, which it's a very common thing when people discuss something far out from their business, and we're architects and we discuss just exactly social questions. Social issues, but
on the level of urban development, it's also something for architects. Tim, I see that you have something to say.
I personally think that it's much more a cultural thing that we should be developing now. We can have these pods of industry or whatever, but I think for the development of Dilijan, we should never get away from this creating this sort of cultural and social thing element, which isn't necessarily about money and profit and the like.
Now there is another aspect, and probably this aspect I will leave as an open question, because I don't think any one of us, three of us, can answer it. But what we are speaking now is basically, from top to bottom, to start something from the top and then move it to the bottom. And we are not talking about things that are developing from bottom to top. We are talking, even in our conversation, we are separating the people of Dilijan as, those who are not subjects of the development of their town, but they are objects. And I would like to think that this is the way of thinking, that if this is installed here, it will bring a lot of good impetus to the city. And I know that there was an attempt, I don't know how successful it was, to develop the park and to make this park sort of a community center to unite people. Do you have any information about that?
Sure.
Please.
Well, basically, it wasn't just the park. There was a whole plan for the master plan for trying to do some of the things that I was talking about, trying to integrate. Because I think it's important to have a roadmap for, before, there's no point in just doing things in isolation and seeing if it fits. Yeah. So it's very important that we have some controls or some guidelines or whatever you like to call them. And we instigated a master plan that the park happened to be something that we isolated from the master plan that was a very important element that could actually start to integrate those elements. So it was about how do we make the lake and the park more accommodating, more interesting for everybody, and something that everybody wanted to come to. Mm-hmm. And again, this happened to be in the crossroads of the rivers and the roads, and so it's pretty difficult to achieve, but it's a very popular place now. But we thought that we could develop it in such a way that it became more user-friendly and a nice place. And again, that would attract people passing through or coming specifically for it. So it was part of trying to give back these spaces. And obviously they were very popular in the Soviet times, and it was kind of to reintroduce that as a positive element.
Thank you. Do you have any comments, Maxim?
One short. I think that to create the friendly space for everybody here with this natural polycentric structure is to create some pedestrian routes with some points of orientation or changing the direction, for example. That's why we should think about if we will, from the, let's say, historically done city center near cinema, we will go down to the lake, and then we can go to the church, for example, and as a point of orientation and something else with the new pedestrian bridge to the other bank, and then to the school, for example. Just on this way, if it's, for example, 2 kilometers, you should have at least 3 points of like a goals, local goals of your route. And the park is very important because it will be a very important point of crystallization, as I should say. Maybe this.
Thank you. Now I want to open the floor for questions. Since this is a panel discussion, I believe there can, should, must be questions from you, and especially because I see at least one person who I know is an architect and is very interested in Dilijan. So please, the floor is open. If you have questions, comments, some things to say, you're more than welcome. I'll bring you the mic.
Thank you. I'm Asmi. I teach environmental systems and societies in UW Dilijan, and I live here for 8 years now. So whatever we were talking about the development of Dilijan, I have seen it myself, and I can notice the difference. But is Dilijan ready for the further development as it is now? Because I see more economical development now rather than sustainable development. Because now the needs of tourists are higher, valued higher than needs of the locals. And whoever lives in Dilijan, we know that we have shortage of water because that's the touristic season. We have shortage of some things because that's the touristic season. Do we really need the development which is happening now, or we should rethink? And how do we make people who make the decisions to make sustainable decisions? Because now I think like we are a group of dreamers who dreams about sustainable development, but the people who are making decisions are not here. And they just approve constructions of hotels one after another.
Sure.
Thank you.
So shall I try and attempt to answer
Well, yes,
a bit of that
because
question?
it was, quite a question, I must say.
I think that goes back to my point about being at the crossroads of Dilijan. Dilijan needs to understand what it wishes for, not really necessarily what it can do now. I think you're absolutely right that we can have too much of one thing because it's successful, and it disregards some of the other elements. But I think it also goes back to the point is that it shouldn't just be us sitting here. It should be people that can make decisions, but they need to understand in the big picture that it can't just be a city full of hotels and restaurants and everything else. It needs to have its own local facilities. I mean, you talk about sustainability. Sustainability is obviously the buzzword around the world at the moment, but what are we doing here to, we try and do it here at the school, and but there's no point in just doing it here. It needs to be done in town, but people need to understand why you do that as well. So it goes back to education, and it's a slower process, I think, than we all would like it to be. But I think it's for me it's very important that that we do two things together. You know, obviously there's the commercial aspect, but I don't think it should be the primary personally, but it's difficult.
Yes, please.
First of all, I completely agree with your statement because we discussed the same, and our problem here is the disintegration because the interests of the town citizens and the tourists, etc. But answering this, I have some advantage because being an author of the church is definitely not intended for tourists because the Dilijan is the unique town in Armenia of such a scale without any church inside. This is a heritage of a cluster of villages, by the way. And doing this, we create a natural point of attraction for the local people. And I would say if we started to speak about the decision makers, maybe when the church will be inaugurated, consecrated, finally the decision makers will finally put the asphalt on the road from the lake to the church. So this is my way to influence this.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to add a couple of nuances because a church is a normal community center, as it was before the Soviets came. And the Soviet Union was demolishing churches and building cultural institutions in places where the churches used to be. That was done in an attempt, to keep some sort of continuation. And please don't think I am now getting patronizing, but when you have a group of dreamers, which is big enough, and of dreamers who are influential enough, things can change. And actually, the dreamers are the people who change things. Now, other questions, please.
Hello, so I'm Dan. I'm a first year student and a transit enthusiast. And something that I noticed from only 1 month, admittedly, of living here, is that I basically have to either walk on a partially paved road or take a taxi to go basically anywhere. I know there's many bus, but it comes like the scheduling, and I don't understand how it works. And at the frequency, I can probably walk there faster. And you talked about how the city has polycentric or many centers, and so I would imagine that there's a heavy demand for different groups to move between the different centers as it's developing a cluster of villages. So my question is, how can Dilijan further develop multimodal transport, including better public transport, as well as better, for example, cycling or pedestrian access, especially so that people can get around better, especially if they don't own a car or may not afford customers. And this also increases sustainability and accessibility.
Thank you very much. That's another important question, but I believe the answer will be yes, and that's it. So, in fact, I would like to address this question back to you. Because it also, the answer is yes, but you can be creative. You can think of new ways, new approaches, not standard means of creating this public transport system in the town where you live now, at least for several years. And if your creative approaches are very crazy, that would be absolutely fantastic for the city powers. Yes, I'll let you talk, because that will make them move. Okay, more questions? Luda. Yes, please. Don't you have anything to say? I believe you do, but you will be the next, please.
Okay, so I'm a dancer and I've lived here for a year and a little bit, and have been lucky enough to have a chance to explore the town a lot, by different means of transportation. I have two questions. I wanted to ask the architects what they think about the idea, or how they could justify the idea of having around 20 corn kiosks, one after another, when you are going down the Dilijan, which really, to me, it just distracts my attention from beautiful mountains. I just can't understand why 20. It becomes crazy. I'm sorry for the judgmental businessman, because I can't find justification for it.
I hear
Can I answer this?
Sure, please.
Or continuing this motive of creativity and creative solutions. My impression is that even as a tourist, when you come to Dilijan, all you can do is go to restaurants and eat. And I always say, there isn't much that you can eat on one day. And so, yes, you can go to the mountains, but then you've got guns, and you can go for, wheel drive vehicle and have a picnic in the mountains, which I think we can enjoy until it lasts the very cold, it won't last for forever. But also, what does tourists do here? I feel like there needs to be something else to attract people to stay longer in Dilijan as tourists, even when we talk about tourism, because there are hotels, restaurants, and what else is there? So, just kind of a question, any ideas what we could be? Should we put our brains together and think what this could be? But the kiosk question, that was really what is the architect's standpoint on that? Because for me it's fascinating. Thank you.
Well, first of all, I think the kiosk is a perfect example of what I was talking about, is that you can, it might be a good idea to have a kiosk, but to have 20 is maybe ridiculous. But the interesting thing about the kiosks, of course, is that they haven't really thought through about the purpose of them and how they work. So if you look at the kiosks, the actual corn making and everything is done outside, so there's actually no need for the kiosk at all. But it's just somebody that says, okay, we think we need to try and help, and actually not really necessarily understanding the problem. So I don't think you can justify 20 kiosks, maybe 2, 3, and also they're all competing against each other. So I don't know how many corns they sell in each kiosk a day, but it's probably less than if there were only 3 kiosks. So from a financial point of view, it probably doesn't work necessarily. But you raise also another thing about how do you keep tourists here and things. A lot of this is obviously chicken and egg, yeah? So originally, you don't have tourists, so you need to encourage the tourists, so you increase the facilities. Once you've got the tourists, then you can start saying, okay, we need to have trails into the park and everything. And I think you maybe don't necessarily understand that quite a lot of work, well, an immense amount of work has been done to try and encourage people. And if you go to the visitor center and things, that's the start of it. But it's then, it can't just be one body that does all of this. You've got to integrate other people to come and invest and do some of these things. So it's a bit chicken and egg, with all of this, and you need to prioritize, but it needs to be part of a bigger plan. And I think that the plan needs to be sorted out first, and then you start prioritizing the plan, and then integrating that, and then always. So you zoom in and then you zoom out of your plan to make sure it's all integrated and works. And you cross-check and you build things that actually work, or facilities that work.
Thank you. Maxim, please.
Well, with the kiosks, first of all, that's a bit funny consequence of the crossroad character of Dilijan between the east and the west, because from Western point of view, it's very strange to have a number of the same businesses in a 20-meter distance. But in any Eastern bazaar in Damascus or in Istanbul, we have a huge row of blacksmiths, for example, or corn traders, and they work somehow. And here we have
Not only in Damascus, in Yerevan as well.
also, and here we have some very straight. Let's take this typical Eastern thing, cut, and stand it a little apart. This is almost a joke, but the serious thing is that this is the contradiction between the natural local season activity and the paternalistic approach. Okay, if they want to sell, we will give the equal kiosk to each other, like a dog houses. And this is something which is a little bit disturbing, because what we have to do, they will sell this just to survive, honestly. And maybe it's better to find a much more subtle way to arrange this. Maybe provide some cluster for this, or maybe make it open, especially because the appearance of these kiosks is problematic in English, I say, about that.
Thank you. Luda?
Thank you for giving me the possibility to speak. Listening to your discussion, I was thinking about different topics. That's why I didn't know what question I want to ask. But if you ask me several topics, firstly, in my mind, architecture is deeply connected with function. And if we are talking about city center, where it should be, I think that Dilijan can have several city centers connected with different functions. One symbolic center, one public space or different public spaces where people can spend their free time, organize meeting, talk to city authorities, for example. And according to my point of view, Dilijan has several city centers, of course, official city center, with a very interesting ensemble of architecture of different styles. City park that we hope will be developed in a huge and best park in Armenia. And Stella monument of 50 years of solar power that must be reconstructed.
Okay.
Contextualize the gain.
Yes. Thank you so much. And this is a big question for discussion, for different discussion. Another question is local identity. I think that we all the stakeholders of Dilijan, have to come up to count some holistic approach of local identity to understand how people who live here and how people who could live here, or how people who come here as tourists have to perceive Dilijan, comparing it with another cities of Armenia and South Caucasus. And this is very big and important question. And answer of this question should come from consensus of all the stakeholders who come here to build something. It was an interesting question to ask investors, why you decided to build only hotels? For example, mentioned here Impulse Factory does exist now. It is in very good condition, and some new production could be organized there. And really, Dilijan, in Soviet times, having population of 20 or 25,000 people, had a factory that gave work for about 3,500 people. That was Impulse Factory. And Dilijan needed now something like that. It's not a question.
It's a comment, it's okay.
Yeah, just a comment, what I was thinking about this new discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. It was, I think, a very important comment. Thank you. Gentlemen, if you have comments over comment.
Well, I suppose my only comment really is that, yeah, sure, all the stakeholders need to agree on the direction that we're going in and not go off in tangents. But it goes back to, planning what we see for the next 20 years, 30 years. And it can't just be one stakeholder that dominates. It needs to be integrated again. So.
Thank you.
Well, maybe I also have some comment above comments, especially when I heard about how to differ the goals of developers from hotels to something else. And I have to notice that it's very dangerous in somehow. When big money will come, it's the easiest way to absolutely corrupt the place, especially if it will be a sort of housing development, for example, with some ugly blocks, as we can see around Yerevan, for example, and whenever in Eastern Europe and whenever else. And this is a real danger. So maybe in the very end of this discussion, if we have a chance to go down to our profession, to say that it's very important to have a sort of city code, the restrictions very serious about the height of the buildings, etc., etc., etc. A lot of the things, and the critical point, the most important one, is who will take decisions, who will undertake this, and who is a keeper of the regulations and of everything.
Thank you very much. Yes, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you for this really interesting discussion. And honestly, I think there were so many thoughts, so many things to think about involved by this discussion. So I was trying kind of to put them into questions, actual question. But first, probably I'll have to make some preamble or background. I want to offer you a different angle. We keep referring to people who can make decisions. People who can make decisions, so where are the people who can make decisions? Well, this is a community. An extended one, of course, but still a municipality. And the majority of the population lives in this house. So people who actually make decisions are the voters. So here's the trick. Are the voters and constituents of this municipality are ready to make necessary decisions? Mark mentioned that we see a lot of top-down solutions imposed on this town, and where are the grassroots sort of bottom-up things, and bottom approach to. We are witnessing for the last 3 years and a real life experiment. Since February 2022, we have an abrupt influx of immigrants. At some point, they made up 10% of the population, and we saw some changes occurring here just because of that. So maybe, what do you think about regardless of factories or businesses or whatever, if people just move here just for the sake of this place, because this is a great place to live. In fact, it lacks a lot of infrastructure, a lot of things that make up the modern urban comfort. But if we manage to bring in people who love this place, because now that, maybe I shouldn't say that, but now I'm officially a resident of Dilijan. I have a standing, I would say so. So maybe I can mention this. On the one hand, the locals are very much concerned about the destruction of their
Everyday life.
everything, yes, on one hand. But on the other, they are also sometimes rather quick to use to treat this town as a piece of property and trying to make money on the same terms, for example. One building ugly, chaotic development buildings, etc., etc. So what I'm trying to say, if we involve more people who want to make this a great place to be, maybe that's where we can find our decision makers. And maybe this is what this initiative, grassroots initiative, should be focused on, bringing in more people.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you remember when we were starting, I said about rule number 1, which is coffee break always starts in due time. We are late, of course, now, but I attribute that to the interest that this conversation is raising. Anyway, if we have more questions or comments, I would like to gather them now and then give the opportunity to the distinguished panel to, wrap the whole thing up. If you don't mind, please identify yourself.
My name is Dilijan. I teach literature at the college, and originally from Dilijan. I've lived in the hill towns in India. I still live in Dilijan. And I guess to carry on the question, right? Also the east-west divide, right? I have no evidence, but I feel that Dilijan is developing like the country in the east, right? Which is without rules, right? And it's pure capitalism, right? Okay, that's whoever can make money, right, will live, right? There is no oversight, right, on norms and rules. That means there's no real way to actually put limits on what's done, right? So, for example, if you come to India, you're stuck in traffic jams for 4 hours, right? It's normal, right? There's no way to kind of actually find accommodation. Mountain sites are coming down because of building and construction, right? Because there's no oversight in terms of how one should build in towns, right? And I feel that this is heading in that direction, right? This is not heading in the direction of, say, towns in Europe or the United States or other places in the world. Something to think about, for instance, Crossroads, but I feel that the Crossroads are kind of, is more in control rather than controlled.
Thank you very much. Yes.
So I'm not local, I'm incomer, but I'm selfish enough now to treat myself as local and to say that we don't need more tourists now in Dilijan. We need to fulfill the needs of the people who live here. Basic needs like having a theater, having entertainment for kids, having sports facilities for kids, which is not there. And I'm lucky enough to have my kids here who can use the facilities, but the local community doesn't have anything. I would think that the direction should be fulfilling the community needs first, then moving towards making money and in attracting more tourists.
Thank you.
Thank you for this panel, for all of you. So we have heard, I think that it's very good discussion because it started with the dialogue, continuation of the dialogue, so many efforts were taken into, we took a lot of efforts to create dialogue. It was started, and the person who gave Flynn is here is the mayor. Unfortunately, he refused to come. We invited, so Leah, please deliver the message. I don't know who has connections, that it's very needed. And all the things about stakeholders and about who makes decision, whether there is general view. I want to say that there is a law about Dilijan, and thanks to that and that existence of the special committee that is adjusting to the municipality about their rules that can be constructed, architecture rules. There is no situation like we see in central zone. So otherwise, it would be the same thing. We'll see skyscrapers and we see one and hope that is nothing will be and another one. And it is not reversible, at least it's very hard to reverse that. And there also dialogue, so there is dialogue between the different investors that started. Also, it was initiated and took place in Dilijan space. All the investors are welcome. Unfortunately, some of the investors couldn't come. We hope we'll repeat again. So there is started the platform to exchange at least knowledge about the projects that are happening here. And should say that there are many nice things that are happening here in the shop, and we're already understanding that it's not only because the tourist place is in heritage from the previous 20th century story. It was yes, and then we did the research whether, like, I think 10 years ago already, that there, because the local people who lived here were mostly people who served all the resorts around that were funded straight from federal budget, and there were few people who are so only few, there was impulse that worked, because it should be also necessary to find sustainable financial and economical model. It's not only because on one hand, tourists, it's a burden for you, but for many people it is source of life, resource that they earn money on that. But then it should be something else over. And what the efforts what we do, and also try to convince it was from our side, and some also investors start to do here, to convince people to relocate here. And college created this different, very different, it is an anchor project here, and created very different realities. And we are pleased to learn when we talk with the parents of DIS, it's the Dilijan International School for Younger Children, that majority of the parents, those who were born in Dilijan, so they come back to Dilijan. So one of you is sitting, so some of them, they were born here, and it is the vehicle for them to come back, and their business, their source of income, is not only because to rebuild a factory is different economy. Which factory we are talking about? It's the economy, it's about, again, to make this town creative and to create the center of creativity, learning and education, and make it regional and recreation. So that's all this was developed, presented to the municipality and to the government on time ago. Unfortunately, it was not adapted. So I hope that it will be more consensus now. So there we just assembled maybe 10 investors there. They all have they agree about how to say vision to see and listen to each other and see what is necessary to do. And so, okay, let's talk to each other and listen to each other. And also not repeat the same mistakes that we're done, but also to bring here people who want to live here and create a level of life here that people consider to move from Moscow, from Tbilisi move, from London, from family move, from LA, who move because of their kids' education, first of all. But when they move and have, because they're in reality that our family invested a lot and our supporters, whom we're very thankful. You reality that we compete with world-class education for the children. That's why they are looking at this possibility to come back. So then other aspects what are necessary for them to look at their needs. Now it is on their, not maybe private business, it's on municipality and government level. All this just service, water supply, garbage, so electricity, all that, and those to build on that. Pavements as well, but as well, for instance, one of the discussions about the park will be, it's a huge attraction for people to move, not to come as tourists, but to move here. Because what you look is every who moved here, they already benefit from the park, which was partially reconstructed, because you have a place to come with your child to. Now the new playground for the children, maybe it's the next. And all the small things make big difference. But yes, to the schools, and also when before talking about local people, we were talking particularly about poor people with very low demand. No, let's talk about locals, those who have their, who can choose from many places where to live. And they choose the city because it offers the town, because that it offers something that they can't find anywhere else. And the main anchor on education, because some families move for several years while their kids are educated. But then all the rest comes as their supplement. So that is their thank you. All this.
It's, gentlemen, I think it's very difficult now to say any other conclusion. But if you want to, you are still the panelists, you are more than welcome. If not, then I have a couple of sentences just to wrap the whole thing up.
Just one short statement that the most valuable, the people is the most valuable part of any city, of any town. And if we started to talk about the immigration of last 2 years, which is a new factor here, it fits exactly with one very important idea of Ruben Vardanyan, that he insisted that the coming of about 100,000 educated people in Armenia will improve a lot here. And it's, I'm very glad to hear the comments of yours and of Veronica about the same. This is the way, how the city will be developed to be good for people to come to live, and the people who will come here to live will do the city better. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think my only conclusion is really, I agree with the comment about having control. We need control, but we also need all the stakeholders to be in agreement with actually what we're trying to achieve, not be it divergence. I think the point that Veronica raised is that, you know, we need to have the municipality, we need to have the government, we need to have all of these people that want to participate as well. And going back to, we talked about the master plan, there was a master plan done, which was meant to create those controls, or start the process of having controls of what was done in Dilijan. But you need everybody to buy into it, otherwise you're fighting all the way. So my view is just that we need to gather the groups together, all of them, and make sure that we're all on the same page. And then I think all of these other things will develop from that. But it is very much a chicken and egg for me.
Thank you. Thank you. Just two short things that I want to say before we finish this discussion. One is, Azniv, In the last 15 years, Dilijan saw a fantastic wave of development. 15 years back, I mean even 10 years back, the city would close itself up at 7 or 8 in the evening. There was nowhere to go. You couldn't even go find a place for a cup of coffee. Okay. So, I mean, you see how quickly and rapidly Dilijan has developed in the recent years. And the second, there is a huge disproportion in development of regional towns in Armenia. We haven't spoken about that yet, but there is a level, you're coming to a level when this may become a serious problem. In the meanwhile, happy birthday to the college. And thank you all for coming.